I will just wait a little bit whilst you guys arrive. Those of you that are joining us live. Get myself sorted. Sorry, I'm starting a couple of minutes late. Actually now really hot from flustering around trying to get on here in time. Woo! There we go, got all my bits, that's fine. Currently have no people in the room. We've now got 3 people, okay. 3 people. Hi, Fiona. Let's see who's joining us today. Say hello, guys. There's 5 of you. There's 6 of you. I can see you all coming in. Oh, hi, Trisha. Your first live sew-along. Oh, well, that's very special. I'll try and make it a good one since we've got a newbie. I hope you enjoy it and enjoy the chat as well. Hi, Helene. No notifications came through. I did just quickly start it, so it might have been that. So sorry if they didn't. But I can see now people are joining, so that's great. Thanks for saying hi, guys. Always makes these live sew-along special if you all chat and say hi and enjoy being online together. Oh, hello in South Africa. Nice, we've got sun here too in London as well, actually. So as always, we've got Rosie answering your questions so that I can try and remember what I'm doing. And so do feel free to ask her. You've got this opportune time to have access to us where we can answer questions like that. So do feel free to pop them in and we'll do our best at answering them. We are here to sew the Nomi dress. Now, because it's been quite a full-on day already, those of you that have tried to benefit from our Black Friday sale may have seen that the site crashed. It's an all too familiar thing for us, unfortunately, but we have now fixed it and it is performing a lot better. But it's been quite stressful for Rosie and I trying to get it to that point. So also I've had a Black Friday sale on my other business, Lisa Comfort Home. So it was a very early start and I completely forgot to wear a Nomi dress. So I haven't got one to show you, but I'm going to, this is a reason to watch it next week because I'll put one on next week. But I am wearing an Edie top, so at least I am wearing a sew over it pattern. And in fact, we have done a team makes talking about all of our make, and I kind of, well, the team makes I've tagged into and I'm showing you the makes that I've done because I didn't get around to doing a special video. So anyway, I digress. We're here to do the Nomi dress. It's the newest PDF pattern. I'm sure a link to it is coming up soon. It's the newest PDF pattern that came out in November. It's a really easy jersey dress. We wanted that. We love a jersey dress at this time of year. If those of you that have been with us a while will know that the Georgie dress came out around October, November. The Heather did. Because it's a sort of thing that you kind of comfy to wear, but we also wanted to have a bit of a party twist to this one because this year you can have Christmas parties. Very exciting. Here in the UK, that is. I know other places you can't, but here in the UK, we can have Christmas parties. So we thought this could be a nice Christmas party dress. And that's why we made a sparkly number for Chantel, our model, with the twist. I thought today I would do the twist with you. Now, I think a lot of people are like, whoa, that's scary, but it's so simple. It really is simple. So we're going to do that together. And also I've also hacked mine into a top. So on the pattern, there are shorten and lengthen lines. And so I've used those to extend it so that it's a top length. So I'm not going to make another dress because I've already got 2. I'm going to make mine into a top. And I already can see, I was like, this is great. The fabric that I'm using has got little red roses on it. It's black with little red roses. And I think that will go really nicely with a black chunky cardi, which I have, a bit of red lippy. That's going to be a very wearable top for me. So that's what I'm doing. Really easy to do that, guys. If you want to just lengthen the pattern, use the lengthen the bodice, sorry. Insert the extra amount that you'll need to make it a top. I added 20 centimeters. I'm 5'6", if that's a helpful amount, and I'm size 10. Yeah, so really easy to do, and then you can make a top out of it. What else was I going to say? Yes, the fabric. Now, because we've had site issues, I didn't add this fabric live to the site before we went live, which is what I normally do if it's not already up there. But I don't want to kind of things like that on our site when it's going slow because of a sale, it does make it struggle further. So this fabric will be available, and in fact, let me just grab the maroon version, which is very pretty as well. I had to try and choose which one to go with, and so I chose the black one because I thought this one would be so popular. I didn't want to take all of it or any of it, but it's gorgeous, isn't it? So those two will be up, but probably after the weekend when the madness of Black Friday has calmed down. So let's get started. So I've got all my bits here. What am I looking for? So I've got my back piece. I'm not going to do anything with that now. So I like to put things that I'm not using, I pop them on the back of my chair. And also, guys, you'll notice that I've got a really lovely neat screen behind me today. That's because they were filming for Stitch School yesterday, a nice exciting Stitch School exclusive pattern that will be coming out in January or next year. And so the setup was all left like this, which is really nice. So it means that I didn't have to have mess behind me as I often do. So we're going to do the twist version. I've got my laptop here to refer to it if I need to. Oh, we've got a pin in there. Oh, that's just marking where my circles are. I didn't cut this out wrong sides together just because I cut it speedily out before I started. I just cut it off straight from the bolt. So I've just put some pins in because I'll need to transfer them to the wrong side. Oh, actually, no, I won't. I can do my stay stitching from this side, so it's fine. But this is what this is what we're working with, which is the twist. And let me just take those out because they are there, the little sewings. And I think that it looks really confusing, but to do. But if you put it on like this, I like to give you guys context. It goes up like that, and then it does go so like that. It twists one way like that, and then it flips again. Tongue must come out for that. And that is actually the twist. Really, really simple. So it's not a complicated thing. And then you seam it. Anyway. We're not doing that yet. We need to just strengthen this little part here because that is going to take the twist strain. Also, we've got to put the binding on, so we just need a bit more strength there. So that is what we're going to do. Yes, Hélène, voila. If only it was that easy. Click our fingers and it's sewn. Right, so I'm going to stay stitch with a straight stitch, but we'll go on to a zigzag after. Let's check. Oh, that's good. We've got a new pedal. The pedal, I don't know if I've moaned about the pedal before, but we had this old pedal that just kept getting stuck, and I had to just switch the machine off sometimes at the switch because it just would run away with what you were doing. Okay, so what we're doing with our stay stitching is just a couple of centimetres from the circle, pivoting at the circle to the other circle, and then a couple of centimetres up that way. Now the seam allowance on the neckline is 1 centimetre, so we do need to be making sure that we are within that centimetre, otherwise that stay stitching is going to show. So I'm just going to line that up so that it's on target for there. And away we go. I forgot to check that the machine liked sewing on this fabric, but it seems to be, so that's good. Again, I usually check that before we start. Oh my goodness. Yes, that's right. Just having a mild panic then. Checking where I've just got really confused where I am. Yes, I am doing the right bit. Okay. Of course I'm doing the right bit. The circles are there. And then needle in, pivot again, and down we go. Just a couple of centimetres down. Just to reinforce that, so that's nice and strong and can cope with the strain of the binding and also the twist. Okay, so let's just trim off our threads. So if anyone's new to dressmaking, I didn't explain what a stay stitch was, but a stay stitch is essentially there to help prevent stretching, there to help support something. It can be, it can be there to kind of strengthen a weak point, that sort of thing. So we've got that there. So now what we're going to do, and I really want to be able to show you guys this, but I don't think I'm going to be able to show it clearly, but I will move this out the way. We've just got to do some pressing. So I've got my iron here. I'm loving this new ironing board. If anyone does any ironing, like if you've got a big sewing setup and you don't have your ironing board out all the time, I just think one of these ironing mats are brilliant because, you know, they're not practical for ironing lots of things, but iron like some sections. But when you're just doing little bits, it's just so nice just to have it there. You've got a machine there, just makes the whole thing flow more easily. I needed this in the lockdowns when I was doing loads. Right, so we are just pressing that that little bit up. And if you use your stitch line as a guide, I'm just pressing that little bit across the middle, just pressing that bit over. So, can you see? There, just press that over. And then we are actually going to edge stitch this little tiny bit in place. Just realised I said I had a great setup. I'm just transfer everything from one side of the table to the other. So we're just going to edge stitch this little bit in place. So really, edge stitching is like 2 millimeters from the edge of the fold where we've just folded it. Now you don't need to pop an edge stitch on for this because it's really quite little and that would just be a bit of a faff. So I would just go straight in with your regular foot, line it up so you've got a nice 2 millimeter gap from the edge. And away we go. Now this is a viscose jersey that I'm working with, so there's always the risk that it's going to get sucked into the bottom of the machine. But it looks like it's feeding in nicely here. Tends to do that when you're right on a raw edge. It will kind of catch it into the machine. Okay. There we go. So that's done. Right. Can we now do the bit? Can I now show you the twist? The big twist without trying to get it on flat on the table. I don't think I'll be able to show all of it to you. Can you see? You can see kind of that much. Yeah? Okay, so easier said than done. It's going to flop here. So what we're going to do is we are going to take the bottom of one side, and then on the right hand side, so I just need to think about this. That's left, that's right. Yep, so on this side, that's just the right. I'm doing it the wrong way round for you guys. And then we're going to flip that once, and then we're going to flip it again. To make our twist. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm now regretting the choice of black because I know that doesn't show up well on the screen. But anyway, you've got the gist. It's really simple. It's just once and then twice. You're twisting it round. You only twist one side. So then what we're going to do is we're going to place them right sides together. So if you keep it flat on the table like this, and then you just take this other piece and you place it over like that. And then we're just going to pull these little edges. So I snipped into my notches. We should have said make sure your notches are snipped in before you start. So there's 2 little notches here so that allows you to pull out the seam allowance. Yeah, it is, Kirsty, isn't it? So much easier. And I think it's just one of those things that you think, oh, I won't do that option, it'll be tricky, which is why I wanted to do it with you guys here, so that this is available for anyone to watch so they can see it's really easy, but very effective. So I'm now just pinning that straight edge, and obviously because I'm doing a top, my straight edge is quite long. Obviously if you're making the dress, it will be shorter. Now, just realise I've automatically pinned it as though I'm going to go from the top down, but very rarely, this very rarely happens. We usually don't ever do it in this direction, but because when we want to be able to sort of stitch into this part where we clipped into, we're gonna work from the bottom. We're gonna stitch from the waist upwards. So that just means that you need to turn your pins over so that you've got it on the other side to work from the top, so from the bottom, from the waist upwards. It's just going to be much easier to come into that clipped part if you're kind of sewing towards it rather than starting there, because all of that bulk of the twist is just otherwise going to get stuck under the presser foot. So easily flipped. Right. So for this, I'm going to go to a zigzag stitch because I do want to have some stretch in that seam. So for a zigzag stitch, I usually, depends on your machine, but something like a width of 1.5, and I like a length of 2. Sometimes I change it though, it depends on the machine. So now the seam allowance for the rest of the pattern is 1.5 centimeters normally, as it normally is rather. So 1.5 centimeters, 5/8 of an inch. Do not get caught, mister. Yeah, you getting caught. Yeah, he's getting caught. I could see that happening. Let's just see. Yeah, he's got stuck under there. Just feed him out and pop him back in again. I've done a nice secure reverse, so I don't need to go over that again. No. I think probably what we're going to have to do is start a little bit further in and then just reverse back again. That's it. There we go. Reverse back again just to meet where I had reversed. And away we go. Just keeping my eye on my guideline, looking at my 5/8 marker on the base of the machine. Taking my pins out as I get to them. There we go. Now I'm coming up to that point where we clip. Now this is why we've secured it and strengthened it with the straight stitch, because he is going to get some strain. I'm just going to try and move that knot out the way. I'm just going to put my needle in, so I think I'm going to have to lift up and get it. There we go. Up to the end. Make sure you reverse there so you strengthen that seam, because there is going to be strain on that. And that's that seam done. Very easy. Easy peasy. It really is a speedy little pattern, this one. It's a simple one. There's not much to it. Obviously it's going to be quicker for me because I'm not adding the skirt on. But let's look at the context already, guys. You know I like to do that. We've already got the curve. There's the seam. We've basically got the front bodice already, and we have got, that needs a bit of fiddling with, but we've got the bust shaping in there, which is what the twist does. Ta-da! So I'm just going to press those seams open, and then we're going to join the shoulders. And what I was hoping to do today is we'll join the shoulder, we'll attach the bodice at the shoulders, we'll join, and then we'll put the binding on. We'll do that, and then next week we can do sleeves, side seams and hems. We might actually finish it, guys. We might have one of the, remember when I actually contrive a thing on, finished? That would be good, wouldn't it? We can do it in 2 hours. Ooh, right, press this open. Okay, you can't see what I'm doing, but it's not that exciting. We're just pressing it open along seam we've just sewn. There we go. Done. So now we're going to take our back, it's like a magic trick that. We're going to place them right sides together at the shoulder seams. And there we go. Just pin that together. I'm just going to do the other one. Okay, both done, both pinned. So we're now going to stitch that together, and I'm going to keep it on the same settings with the zigzag stitch. So I've got that in there. We don't, I don't believe we're going to add, we don't add any ribbon to this. If you want to, you don't need to, but if you want to have ribbon or some sort of tape in there to strengthen and support your shoulder seams, you can, but it is meant to be a nice sort of soft jersey dress. It shouldn't lose its shape. It's close fitting. Oh gosh, it's doing it again. Naughty thing. Does not want me to sew the end of it. Let's just start way in so it can't get caught underneath. There we go. And risk going back. It's fine. Check that. So that's just got some nice bit of stretch in it still because of the zigzag stitches. That's why we do it. And then we'll do the other one. Now I'm going to learn my lesson here and start in from the beginning. I'm just not going to reverse right to the edge. It's just not worth it. Don't worry, that's all going to get stitched through a seam allowance anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's at the armhole or the neckline. If it's not quite right to the edge, it's fine. And obviously, I should have said I'm using 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. So, pressing those seams open, so that's done. Okay. So those seams are pressed open, we've got the twist in, so we're already getting a top, guys. It's getting exciting. So what we're going to do now is the facing, or rather the binding piecing. Just spotted here that it does say about adding a ribbon. Just say, should I have a ribbon, guys? Should we just...
Yeah, we're just talking about it.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, having a chat. Sorry, guys.
On the shoulder seam?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, we've not done it. Didn't think it was there. It is. Put a ribbon in. Although this... I didn't put a ribbon in the shoulder seams of my Edie, and I'm terrible, but I'm a bit like interfacing. I don't think you need it always.
No, we were saying that the weight of the maxi, I think, needs it.
Yes.
But maybe like in your top, maybe not.
Yeah, that's true, because that would pull it, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, guys. Conflicting. You're like, what is she saying? And Rosie's saying something else. Anyway. Fine. Well, I'm not going to do it. But you would do that there. I don't have any ready, so I'm not going to do that. And like you say, it's a top, so it'll be fine. Right, so I didn't, I'm just going to check this because my binding pieces that I cut are slightly, I think are going to be a little bit on the short side because I didn't, I had the original pattern, the sort of pattern that we work from when we're doing a toile fitting. We didn't have a binding piece, no. So I'm just going to join mine so that they are the right length. That your binding piece will be, so you won't need to do this. But if you are trying to save on fabric, it's very easy to do this. So okay, so I'm just going to use a centimetre seam allowance so I don't have too much bulk. I'm still using the zigzag stitch as well, so it still behaves the same way as the fabric does. Okay, I'm just going to press that open. And then we'll press our binding. Now I'm going to sort of make an approximate cut on this because it's really quite long, but I'm not going to accurately do it because I'll work that out when I'm pinning it. Okay. So I'm now just going to press that over again. So it's going wrong sides together, and we're just going to press that in place. Whilst I'm doing this, I should say that there is a chance when you're putting the neckline on that it could stretch, and if you've got a viscose jersey that's really quite fine or stretchy, you might want to put some clear elastic on your neckline before to stop it from stretching. We do that in our Georgie dress, I think, because that's really kind of at a point where it can stretch, and you can find that if you're not careful, that can happen with this as well. So if you want to, you could add that in just to prevent extra stretching when you're doing the neckline. Only for this version, it's not really relevant for the round neck. Okay. Okay, I'm actually just going to do it like this and work it out that way. Get an approximate length. Just quickly. Okay, so we're now going to pin it on, and we're going to do one side and then the other. Now the reason why we do this with necklines is that if you sew a binding piece like that all the way around, and that's true sometimes when you're doing a facing of a jacket or a shirt, then you can get drag lines, so it pulls like that, so it's like pulling up on this side and pulling down on this side. So ideally what we do is we start at the centre back and we kind of stitch down like that, or you start that way and stitch down. So you do one side and then the other side. So that's what we're going to do. And if we just pin one side, sew that, and then pin the other side. So I'm going to put my my seam that I just did on my binding, I'm going to put that in the centre back, which I just need to find because I know I have got a nice little double marker there, so that's great, I can use that. And we're just going on to the right side of the neckline. I feel I should be doing it here so you can see more clearly. And then I'm going to start to pin down one side. It doesn't matter which side you do. Now this is where we've got to be very delicate, and I'm actually just going to make my hands a little bit damper so that I can pin it and ease back. I just want to ease back a little bit on the actual bodice so that I'm not stretching. So I'm really being delicate, but I'm also just slightly pulling it back so that I'm preventing stretch. Just be careful at your shoulder seams. I always like to put 2 pins in at my shoulder seams just to keep those seam allowances pressed open. And we're getting down towards the knot, and we're going to have to do a little bit of fudgery of moving the twist a little bit out the way. So you sort of push it onto one side when you're sewing that side, and then push it onto the other side when you're doing the other one. So I'm just pulling it through. If you just pull it through, you can then get to where you need to get to. Oops. Find that notch. Let's check that. Okay. Sorry, I'm concentrating, so I'm not chatting. Just want to check that I've got that notch in the right place. I'm definitely going to go, I think that notch, yeah. So you've got 2 notches to mark your centre front each side. Okay. I'm going to trim that little bit at the end. I don't need to trim it yet. Right, so we've got one side pinned, so I'm going to sew that straight away, then we'll pin the other side. So keeping it on the zigzag stitching settings, and this seam allowance, like most necklines, is 1 centimetre. So I am going to have to, on this side, work with all the fabric on the kind of inside the machine. But when I come on the other side, I'll be able to have it on a more comfortable edge. So if you haven't got markings on the opposite side of your machine, you can always lay a piece of masking tape or something and measure. And how you do it, if you've got one of those little tools, you can do that. But if you haven't got one of those little rulers, what you can do is I lower my needle down onto a plastic tape measure and then put it into the kind of centimetre mark, and then you can see where that falls at the end. And that's kind of an easy way of making sure you've got a seam allowance marking if it's not there on your machine. Okay, here we go. So we need to be super careful that we're not stretching too much as we go. Just notice as well, this is just pulled out of place just there. I need to make sure that fold line is just didn't quite press nicely enough at that point. So I'm just going to adjust those edges. I would recommend going a little bit slower than what you normally would, because if you go too fast, that will potentially stretch it out of shape. I'm just coming up to my shoulder seam. I want to make sure that I'm being careful here and making sure that I'm keeping that shoulder seam allowance flat, pressed open. That's why I've got my double pins in. Getting there, guys, we're getting there. We're getting to the fiddly bit because we're coming up to the knot. So let's do it in little sections as you come up to this part. So you're trying not to stretch it too much. Oh, my tummy's rumbling. I could just hear it. Hopefully you couldn't. Okay. There's my little centre front notch. I can see him. I know where I'm going to stop there at that point. Take these pins out as I get to them. Yep. Okay, so stop just where your notches, your centre front notches. Okay. That's one side done. You won't have that, it's just because mine was longer, but that's one side done. I'm just going to trim this off the extra bit now, so I don't need that. It's just going to be confusing. And when you push the knot back to the other side, for when we're doing this side, you'll see that we obviously haven't closed it properly, but it will then sort of hide that end bit, it gets lost in the knot. So where the end of the binding will get covered basically if you go up to your notch. Right, so we now need to pin the other side. Let's just trim those threads off so we don't get too many threads in the way. Okay, and we're going to just come around there. So this is a really classic way of attaching a binding. There's lots of ways. I find this the easiest way of folding it in half, whether it's even a sort of woven binding or a stretchy jersey knit binding. Fold it in half, wrong sides together, stitch it on like that, and then pull it in. Trim down the seam allowances, pull it inside, or fold it inside, and then stitch it in place. And again, just be careful as you're going that you're not stretching and that you're actually easing back in. Much better if we can do that. I'm not missing on. Am I missing any chat now? It's all gone quiet on the chat now. I know, I feel like I have been concentrating quite hard with this one today. I've not been aware of what was going on. What's being discussed. Oh, we've just lost somebody. Well, just see someone's left. Maybe they've gone to have some lunch. Oh no, there's 2 people joined. I have a little number at the top there, I can see. I can see what's happening. Okay, I've actually come, and now I've got that centre front notch. I've got to the notch now, so I can know that I've got enough length there, and I can see my binding from the other side. They're meeting. See where they'd meet. Okay. So now we're just going to sew around this centimetre seam allowance. It's going to feel a lot easier for this side. I don't know, it does depend on which side you started on, but I've now got the easier side, so I've got all the fabric off the machine rather than bunched up in it, and I've got a nice easy guideline to follow. So just take your time. What I'm doing really here is I'm gently pushing the fabric towards the presser foot rather than kind of holding it taut and tight and therefore stretching it. That's what we don't want to do, because that will stretch it. So being really delicate and light-handed with the fabric so that it doesn't stretch too much. There. Okay. There we go. Trim off our tails. I should have said I did reverse then. It's important to reverse and secure those seams. Get rid of all of those. So the binding now is completely on all the way around the neckline. That's the hard bit done. And so I'm actually, I think you should ideally trim this down, but I'm actually going to, I think mine's absolutely fine because my binding is definitely wider, so I'm not going to trim down, and my fabric is nice and thin, so I don't need to. Now if your fabric was thick, my binding might be slightly wider than yours because I just quickly drafted one, but if your fabric is quite thick, then you might need to grade it, and that means where you cut one of the layers of the seam allowance shorter, so narrower than the others, so that there's less bulk. But if you're using a relatively fine viscose jersey, you shouldn't need to do that. So what I'm going to do now is just first press it flat all the way around. Do it in little sections. making sure that seam allowance is going towards the inside of the bodice, away from the edge of the binding basically. And now we're going to do two stitches. We're going to do an understitch and we're going to do a top stitch. So the understitch will help keep that seam allowance in, and then we'll do the top stitch to kind of properly keep the binding in. One thing I'd say is if you're concerned that your jersey's going to stretch, I'd skip the understitching, because all you're doing is 3 more kind of strains on the fabric, potentially stretching it. So you could just skip the understitching section and just go straight to top stitching and getting the binding in there. So I'll do that one with you though. I will do the understitching and hopefully it won't stretch too much. So again, if we do the understitching in the zigzag, but also from the same direction. So we're going from the centre back around to the front and then the other centre back. So we're doing it in the same direction rather than doing it in one big continuous thing as well. Just want to check that I haven't missed something. Yeah, no, we're fine. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start at the centre back. Just understitching along the binding edge, anchoring those seam allowances. Just be careful that you're not stretching anything. Notice I'm going a little bit faster. That's just because I've got some more support and structure in the fabric now that the binding's on, so I can kind of afford to go a little bit faster, but I am still being delicate with how I'm handling it so I don't stretch it. Getting there. So now I just need to adjust my knot so that I've got that section clear. Just push the knot out the way depending on which side you're sewing. Okay. There we go. So now, let's just trim those threads off. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fold the whole of the binding into the inside of the top, and then we'll stitch that in place. Find that. And trim that one off. How are we doing? Oh, hopefully we're going to just about fit it in. Even if I might just do one side of this top stitching with you guys, I might not get both in, but I'll do one side with you. So we're now just folding that binding into the inside. You should be able to see your understitching here on your binding. That's all going to be inside, so don't worry about that. Again, move your knot out the way so that you've got your twist. I keep calling it a knot, but it's a twist. Okay, so that's now pressed nicely on one side. So I'm just going to now pin it. Now you could pin it first from the inside if you want to, and then transfer your pins, but mine's pressed nicely enough that I can just pin it from the right side. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, when you're handling it, just be careful that you're not over handling it and therefore stretching it as well. So that's all pinned in place. There it is. That's all pinned in. And then we're going to top stitch. Now, do we give a guidance on how much we should be? No. We do say though to start from this side, so let's start from where the two binding edges meet. Make sure you move that out. I guess this is to counteract the drag. So if you are stitching everything always in that direction, it could stretch too much. So we're going to do it this way this time. So I'm going to use about a 5mm, just over maybe 6mm distance from the edge there. We don't stipulate in the instructions where to top stitch it, but that would be enough. You could go a little bit more if you wanted, but not much. You obviously need to make sure that you're catching the edge of your binding. Again, super careful. It looks like I'm holding my hands when you can't quite see, but it looks like I'm stretching it, but I'm not. I'm being really delicate like this so that I don't overhandle the fabric. Oh, my tummy's rumbling again. Ready for lunch. Okay. I'm at the centre back now. I'm going to stop there. You can stop there, and then when you come to do the other side, you'll just slightly overlap. You don't need to reverse. But that is now top stitched on one side. So I just want to be able to show you that before we end, so you can see. Can you see? You can't really see, can you? Can you see? No. Trust me, it's top stitch. So that will essentially come in. We need to adjust the knot, but that will come in like that. It's nice and crisp and flat, and it's all fully finished. Ta-da-da-la. So next week, guys, I'll finish that, and then next week we can do the side seams together, and also obviously the sleeves and hemming, and then we will, I'm pretty sure we'll have a finished top. So join me next week, same time for that. Thanks for joining the live, guys. Those of you who joined the live, and those of you that are watching it, thanks for watching it after the live. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Thanks to Rosie for answering all your questions. All the links will be popped in the description, so if you want to link to the Nomi pattern, and also when the fabric is now live next week, we will pop that in there as well. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe. I think that's everything. We're all going to go back to Black Friday orders, so we'll see you soon. Bye.